Somewhere right now, someone is typing 3 words into a search bar. Are root canals dangerous? And within seconds, they are reading claims that a routine dental procedure performed on millions of people every year might be quietly poisoning their bloodstream, causing arthritis, causing heart disease, even causing cancer. These claims did not start on the internet. They started almost 100 years ago, inside the dental establishment itself. And the strangest part of this story is not that the theory existed, it is who tried to bury it, who tried to revive it, and why it still will not die. The whisper that never stopped. If you have ever had a root canal, you may have heard a version of this rumor from a friend, a relative, or a stranger online. Something about how the tooth is dead, how bacteria get trapped inside it forever, how that trapped infection can leak into your body and slowly make you sick in ways no doctor will ever connect back to your mouth. It sounds like modern misinformation, a wellness influencer's theory dressed up in medical language. But this idea has a real name, a real origin, and a real paper trail that goes back to the earliest years of professional dentistry in America. It is called the focal infection theory. And to understand why it still shapes conversations in dental offices today, you have to go back to a man who once stood at the very top of the profession. The man who ran the experiment. His name was Dr. Weston Price. In the 1920s and 30s, he was not a fringe figure. He was the head of research for the National Dental Association, the organization that would later become the American Dental Association. For 14 years, his findings carried the weight of the entire profession behind them. Price, working alongside earlier researchers including Dr. Frank Billings and Dr. Edwin Rosenau, became convinced that a tooth which had undergone root canal treatment could never truly be sterilized. Bacteria, he argued, remained sealed inside the tooth and its surrounding bone. From there, he believed, they could travel silently through the bloodstream and settle in other organs, triggering chronic disease years later. To prove it, Price ran a startling experiment. He took teeth that had been removed from patients suffering from various illnesses, teeth that had previously received root canal treatment, and implanted them under the skin of rabbits. When the rabbits became sick or died, Price recorded it as confirmation. The disease from the human patient, he concluded, had transferred through the tooth itself. It was dramatic. It was unsettling, and at the time it was taken seriously by an entire generation of dentists. The experiment that could not hold up, here is where the story turns. Price's rabbit experiments were never properly controlled. The rabbits were not screened for pre-existing infections, there was no meaningful comparison group, and the leap from a sick rabbit to a confirmed cause inside a human tooth ignored decades of what we now understand about immunology, contamination, and coincidence. But the damage from the theory came first, and the correction came later. Acting on the focal infection theory, dentists and physicians across the country began recommending the extraction of teeth, and sometimes tonsils, in patients suffering from arthritis, kidney disease, and other chronic conditions that had nothing to do with dental infection at all. Millions of teeth were pulled, not because they were failing, but because of a theory that a tooth might be secretly poisoning the rest of the body. It took decades for the profession to reckon with what had happened. Then, in 1951, 3 years after Price's death, the Journal of the American Dental Association published a detailed re-examination of his original research. It found fundamental flaws in both his methods and his conclusions. The theory that had justified pulling millions of healthy and treatable teeth was, in the eyes of the profession, dismantled. Dentistry moved on. Root canal treatment became the standard, evidence-based way to save an infected tooth, instead of removing it. For decades, the focal infection theory faded into dental history, treated as a cautionary tale about how easily fear can outrun evidence. Then, in 1994, it came back, and this time, it came from someone nobody expected. The book that wouldn't die. The man who revived the theory was Dr. George Meinig. He was not an outsider looking to stir controversy. He was a founding member of the American Association of Endodontists, the very organization built around the specialty of root canal treatment. In 1994, Meinig published a book. He called it Root Canal Cover-Up. Its introduction was written by Dr. Edwin Van Valle, a past president of that same association. The book argued that Weston Price had actually been right, and that the dental establishment had suppressed his findings to protect the root canal industry, rather than because the science had failed him. The title alone did the work. Root canal cover-up did not sound like a debunked 1920s theory. It sounded like a conspiracy with a smoking gun, written by someone from inside the profession itself. It found a new audience in the growing world of holistic and biological dentistry, and decades later, it is still cited, still quoted, and still shaping how some patients think about a procedure their dentist recommends. This is where the story stops being simple, because on one side, you have the mainstream dental and medical consensus built on modern immunology and repeated scrutiny of Price's original data. On the other, you have a persistent movement of practitioners who believe the correction itself was the cover-up. What the evidence actually shows. So which side holds up under modern scrutiny? According to the American Association of Endodontists, Price's original research does not meet the standards of modern science. His methods predated a real understanding of immunology and infection, and later analysis exposed the same flaws that the 1951 Journal Review identified decades earlier. That does not mean the mouth has nothing to do with the rest of the body. It means something more precise. Modern research does support a real connection between oral health and systemic health, but it is a different mechanism entirely. Untreated gum disease, for example, has been associated with increased inflammation that may affect cardiovascular health. That is active infection in living tissue, continuously irritating the body. A properly completed root canal is a different situation altogether. The infected pulp tissue is removed. The canal is cleaned, disinfected, and sealed. There is no ongoing living infection communicating with the bloodstream the way Price's theory described. The tooth becomes biologically inert in a way that current evidence does not link to systemic disease. This is the distinction that gets lost every time the century-old theory resurfaces online. Oral health absolutely affects the rest of the body. But the specific claim that a properly treated root canal is secretly leaking toxins into your organs is the part that modern research has not been able to support. Why the controversy refuses to die? If the science has been this consistent for over 70 years, why does the theory keep resurfacing? Part of the answer is fear. A root canal already carries a reputation as one of the most dreaded procedures in dentistry, so a theory suggesting it might also be dangerous long after the appointment is over finds an audience primed to believe it. Part of the answer is also that the biological and holistic dentistry movement built an entire practice model around avoiding root canals, often recommending extraction and implant placement instead. For some practitioners, the century-old theory offers a philosophical foundation for that approach. Whether that approach reflects the current weight of scientific evidence is a genuinely contested question inside dentistry, and reasonable practitioners land on different sides of it. And part of the answer is simply that a title like root canal cover-up is built to travel. It sounds less like a discredited 1920s theory and more like a secret someone tried to bury. Once a story like that exists, no amount of journal re-examination fully erases it. If today's investigation changed the way you think about the history behind your dentist's recommendations, subscribe to Mouth Secrets. We uncover the science and the scandals hiding behind every appointment. So the next time someone tells you their root canal is secretly making them sick, you will know exactly where that idea came from. A powerful researcher, a flawed experiment, a generation of unnecessary extractions, a correction that took decades, and a book published 70 years later that gave the theory a second life it was never able to earn scientifically. Tell us in the comments, if a trusted expert turned out to be wrong about something this significant, how long should it take before the public actually believes the correction?